Hey guys, how's it going? I'm your host, Jared Bronstein, and welcome back to Life's Biggest Questions, where we look to answer any and all questions you may have. Today we'll be talking about what really happened to the Titanic. Of course, as many of you know, it hit an iceberg and sank. Tons of people died. But what actually happened? Stick around to find out. Before we get into it, make sure you guys are subscribed, ring that bell, and of course, let us know in the comment section down below what other videos you'd like to see on this channel. We consider any and all questions you leave us, so don't give up. Alright, let's get right into the question and explore what really happened to the Titanic. 4 days after leaving Southampton, England on April 14th, 1912, at approximately 11:40 p.m., the Titanic collided with an iceberg. But it didn't collide head-on, which many believed wouldn't have sunk the ship. As those steering the ship tried to get around the iceberg, the ship's starboard scraped along pieces of the hardened ice. This allowed tons of water to flood into the base of the ship, which caused at least 5 of the watertight compartments in the bow to rupture. At that point, it was evident the ship was going to go down. When all was said and done, of the 2,224 people on board, which included the crew, only 710 of them were saved, leaving 1,514 as the number of those who lost their lives on the night of the wreck. But it seems there's much more to the story here. The reason for the crash in the first place was due to the iceberg, but it could have been avoided. The death toll could have been and should have been much lower than it was. On top of all this, a mix of extremely calm weather on the night, as well as a ton of miscommunication, could have prevented one of the biggest and most infamous maritime disasters ever. So let's start before the crash itself. It's believed less than an hour before the ship made contact with the iceberg, another nearby ship, the Californian, sent out a radio warning that it had stopped due to the dense ice. However, since the radio warning didn't begin with MSG, which meant Master Servicegram, Jack Phillips, the radio operator for the Titanic, didn't feel the message was urgent. Because of this, he didn't pass it along to the ship's captain, Edward Smith. The ship's 2 lookouts, Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee, were working from the crow's nest, which is the upper part of the ship and looks like a little round bowl of sorts. It's literally made for lookouts to see far ahead so the ship doesn't crash into anything. Unfortunately, and coincidentally, the lookout didn't have binoculars on him, so they could only see what meets the eye. Although stories vary, with some saying the lookout misplaced them, and others claiming David Blair, a second officer who actually had the keys to the Titanic's store of binoculars in his pocket, forgot to hand them over when he was taken off the ship before it set maiden voyage from Southampton. One thing is for sure, the lookouts did not have a set of binoculars on them to use. It's believed if they did, the ship might have avoided the iceberg altogether. Of course, weather also played a very big factor in the lookouts not being able to see the iceberg. It's believed the night of the crash, the water was extremely calm, and due to the fact that waves weren't crashing on the iceberg at the time, at least to the point that they were noticeable, the lookouts didn't realize it was in fact an iceberg until it was much too late. Another factor is when the iceberg was seen, the ship's first officer, William Murdoch, ordered for a hard starboard, which would cause the boat to steer left and for the engines to reverse. More specifically, the order means to turn the wheel under the tiller system right and left under the rudder. This caused the ship to slowly turn, but as we know, it didn't turn in time to completely avoid the iceberg. However, in 2010 it was revealed in fact that when the ship was told to hard a starboard, the order was misinterpreted by the quartermaster of the ship, Robert Hitchens. Instead of turning the ship left, he turned right, and although his mistake was almost immediately rectified, as we know, it was unfortunately too late. When the ship's fate was sealed, lifeboats were set out. However, it's believed more than 400 people could have been saved. But once again, thanks to a misinterpreted order, a ton of lifeboats were sent out with empty seats. Although the ship itself didn't have enough lifeboats for everyone, leaving Southampton with merely 20 total lifeboats, it was technically the legal minimum at the time. Although it was recommended that the ship carried at least 30 lifeboats, it technically wasn't required back then. What's more is when the lifeboats were being filled with passengers trying to get to safety, Captain Smith said put the women and children in and lower away. This order was interpreted differently by first and second officers Murdoch and Lightoller. Murdoch understood the order to fill the lifeboats with women and children first, then allow men to get onto the boats. Lightoller took the order as women and children only. Because of this, Lightoller sent out lifeboats with empty seats if there were no women or children waiting to board, while Murdoch allowed men to board the lifeboats if there were no women or children waiting. It's believed because of Lightoller's misunderstanding, another 400 people could have been saved. There have also been theories among some that the materials used to build the Titanic attributed to it falling apart after scraping along the iceberg. Although this notion has been dismissed by Harland and Wolff, who built the ship, Jennifer McCarty and Tim Fowick, both material scientists, believe the rivets that were used to hold the steel hull together might have been weaker than they should have been. According to their studies, the rivets contain a high concentration of something called slag, which is a residue that can occur while smelting ore. The two believe when the ship struck the iceberg, had the rivets been stronger, the hull may not have snapped in half the way it did. But, as previously mentioned, the company that manufactured the ship believes the rivets had nothing to do with the ship's demise. To prove this theory wrong, Tom McCluskey, a former employee of the company, pointed out how the Olympic, the Titanic's sister ship, used the same rivets and didn't have an incident for 25 years. On the contrary, stronger rivets may have slowed the rate at which the ship sank, but ultimately, it wouldn't have stopped it from going down in the first place. A final theory in regards to why the ship went down was bad timing. More specifically, there was an argument that the Earth was close to both the Moon and the Sun in 1912. This caused their gravitational pull to affect the ocean, not only creating big tides, but also significantly increasing the amount of floating ice, which some eventually turned into icebergs in the North Atlantic. Another study done by Tim Moulton, a British historian, blames what's called superrefraction. The idea here is that while the Titanic was sailing from the warmer Gulf Stream water into the colder Labrador Current, it caused a thermal inversion. This is caused from the air cooling from the bottom up, or from the water upward. Due to this inversion, what's called a superior mirage might have been formed based on a reflection of light. This means objects tend to appear higher and closer than they really are, and it also creates an area called a false horizon. The area between the false and true horizon could be covered in a fog like haze, which is believed to be one of the reasons the Titanic's lookout saw the iceberg too late. Aside from not having binoculars, the horizon they saw, based off of this false horizon, made the water ahead seem flat and calm, when in reality, there was an iceberg being covered by this fog like haze. Although the Californian did try to contact the Titanic by radio, as the ship got closer to the iceberg, the Californian's captain, Stanley Lord, didn't try to radio the ship again. This was due to the fact that the Titanic looked much smaller and closer because of this false horizon, which may have only shown the top of the ship. Lord knew the Titanic was the only other large ship in the area with a radio, so he didn't try to contact this smaller ship, which was really the Titanic, assuming it wouldn't have a radio. When the Titanic knew it would crash, they sent out signals by Morse lamp and distress rockets. Both signals may have been distorted due to this false horizon, making it much more difficult for the Californian ship to see these signals. Following the crash, the ship would actually split in half and sit on the ocean floor, where it still lies to this day. It was first discovered on September 1st, 1985 by Robert Ballard, and the discovery helped those get a better understanding of what might have happened on that tragic evening. It seems as the years go on and our technologies get better, we're able to figure out in much more depth what really happened to the RMS Titanic. As of now, there are still tons of theories, from weather conditions to misplaced binoculars to a wrong turn, among many others, as to what really caused the crash. We may never truly know what actually caused the crash, but we can do our best to try and understand why and how it happened based off of the information we find as the years go on. Hopefully one day we will have a definitive answer once and for all. But until then, let's reply to some comments from the video. What if mosquitoes grew 10 times as large? Alpha Male Relationship and Business Coaching said, if they grew that large, now that would really suck. I think he meant to say they would really suck, but get it? Because they suck your blood? Alright, on to the next one. Islanted, and I might have said your name wrong, it's just like a bunch of symbols, so I'm sorry, said, then we need to invent a gigantic electric fly swatter. It's just a large electric fence would probably do the trick. Just surround yourself with large electric fences, guys. Just make a large electric fence and just don't come in proximity that you can touch it, but make sure that mosquitoes can't touch you, I guess. I don't know. That would kill them. Avalos B said, then let's burn the planet Earth and go to another planet. Problem solved. Honestly, you don't have to encourage it. We're doing a good enough job as it is. And on that note, guys, I'm going to wrap this one up. I've been your host, Jared Bronstein. Make sure you guys like this video if you enjoyed it. Drop us some comments down below with what you really think was the cause of the crash of the Titanic. Was it the wrong turn? Was it the weather? Was it the misplaced binoculars? What do you guys think really caused the crash here? Let me know in that comment section down below. Make sure you guys are subscribed and hit that bell notification so you guys never miss a video, and we'll see you guys again soon.